What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and welcome to another episode of Unanswered. Originally, I was going to use this episode to talk about how Sombra is most definitely not Alejandra from the Hero Cinematic, but that seemed self-evident enough, and the script turned out to be like 2 pages. Anyways, Blizzard has released Reflections, the Overwatch holiday comic, and it's already gotten the community in quite a buzz. There's a whole lot of interesting tidbits and new character developments in this comic, and I'd like to focus on just one page in particular. No, not that one. Yes, there we go, that one. This page near the end of Reflections shows most of the playable characters, and what they're up to for the holidays. Only a few select characters are left out of the comic, namely Bastion, Diva, and Symmetra. Mei and Zarya make brief cameos during the first few panels, and you can see a poster advertising Lucio's concert for New Year's Eve at around the midway point. Moving back to the main page of discussion though, each panel shows the majority of the remaining characters, and some of them are much more interesting than the others. You see Junkrat and Roadhog causing a ruckus in what looks like some kind of amusement park in the bottom left corner. Nothing really special about this one, it's pretty much what you'd come to expect from those two. In the top right corner, you see Ana and 76 hanging out in some run-down looking building. The setting for this panel seems very similar to the one for the Legacy comic where Reaper 76 and Ana reunite, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same. Ana is gazing out the window, and judging from her facial expression, she's probably wondering about how Pharah's doing. She's probably far away from Egypt at the moment, and it likely pains her to be separated from her family. I know it's been about a decade since Ana has supposedly been killed, but the holidays do a really good job of bringing out those kind of depressive emotions full force. If we adjust our gaze over to 76, we see that he's holding a picture of what looks like him standing next to Tracer. He seems like the nostalgic type, so it doesn't surprise me that he'd be brooding over the glory days of Overwatch. Moving to the panel near the center of the page, we can see McCree and Sombra in the same bar in what I would have to guess is Mexico. From the Train Hopper comic, we know that McCree is roaming around the southern US area, so it wouldn't be that large of a jump to cross over into Mexico. Other than the fact that these two characters happen to be in the same place at the same time, there's nothing really special about this scene. Going back to the bottom left portion of the page, just right of the Junkrat Roadhog one, we'll find Hanzo. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on in this one, but it looks to me like Hanzo is either at some sort of buffet or bakery looking at a cake. From the looks of the kid behind him, it doesn't appear to be in his native Japan, so I'd say it's more likely to be somewhere in the Western world. Before we move past this though, can we just take a second to acknowledge the kid standing behind Hanzo? Seriously, he's like a combination of Pinocchio and Chucky. Just look at those beady little eyes staring into your soul. That kid's seen some shit. This kid has caused some shit, and if you don't watch out, you'll be next. Anyways, looking at the bottom right corner, we see Mercy in a tent wearing her doctor's getup and reading a letter. This seems normal enough, and there's not much we can learn from this image alone. It's well known that Mercy immersed herself in her medical practice after Overwatch disbanded. We do get slightly more context when we look to the exact opposite side of the page, however. Here we see that Genji was the author of the letter Mercy was reading, and that he and Zenyatta are hanging out at the Nepal monastery. Seems normal enough, right? Until you remember that Zenyatta left the monastery because he disagreed that violence would never bring peace. Our first introduction to the Omnic monk was that he believed fighting would be necessary in order to find peace in a war-ravaged world. That's not to say that Zenyatta left on bad terms, but it just seems strange that he and Genji would make the pilgrimage back to the place they explicitly left behind. Shifting down slightly from the Genji-Zenyatta panel, we see Pharah sitting down to dinner with an elderly gentleman. Judging from the discussions on the forums and Twitter up to this point, I would say that this man is almost definitely Pharah's father. It was stated by the devs that Pharah knows who her father was, that it wasn't 76 or Reaper, and that he just hasn't been relevant enough to introduce thus far. Plus, it doesn't seem too far-fetched for Pharah to want to sit down to a nice dinner spent with her father. Considering the feelings she has towards Ana, Pharah may well be more close to her father, him having raised her by himself and all. The final 3 panels that we've left to talk about are what I believe to be the most interesting in terms of possible impact on the story. Let's start with the large center panel that had so many people talking about it when the comic was first released, almost as much as the whole Tracer thing. The scene depicted is of Reinhardt reading a book to 8 young children, Bridget standing over his shoulder, and Torbjorn getting it on with an unknown lady. This is probably the most heartwarming depiction of what the characters are doing for Christmas, so it doesn't surprise me that Blizzard chose this to be front and center, taking up the most space for the page. So many people exploded with their own theories on Reddit and Twitter, claiming that that lady could be Torbjorn's wife and that the children are all his. What's more is that a select few are also trying to say that Bridget could also be Torbjorn's child, and she was visiting the family for Christmas along with Reinhardt, her traveling companion. I personally didn't buy this theory, and I thought something entirely different when seeing this panel. The first thoughts that go through my head when reading reflections for the first time was that Torbjorn, Reinhardt, and Bridget were visiting a local orphanage near Torbjorn's workshop, and were entertaining the children. That seemed to me to fit pretty well with what we know about the main characters. Reinhardt loves honor and glory, and especially when he has the opportunity to help out in entertaining kids. Some of Torbjorn's lines also seem to make him out to be quite the romantic, meaning that it would make sense for him to hit on the orphanage matron. I will admit that I got a bit of a chuckle out of the idea of Torbjorn sweeping some random lady off her feet dressed as Santa. But don't go agreeing with my theory too early, because since I originally read the comic, the official Overwatch Twitter has indeed confirmed that the children in the picture are in fact Torbjorn's, making it almost impossible that the lady Torbjorn is romancing is anyone other than his beloved wife. I still think my theory would have been pretty funny, but this does paint a rather touching image as well. As for Bridget being Torbjorn's daughter, it's doubtful. While we don't know much about Reinhardt's traveling companion, we do know a few things. For one, Bridget is a common French name, while Torbjorn is Swedish. What's more is that Bridget is estimated to be in her late 20s to early 30s, making her at least double the age of Torbjorn's oldest confirmed child. My best guess here is that she just tagged along with Reinhardt as he went to visit an old friend, and possibly get his armor fixed. Again. The last two panels we have to talk about are about characters I was not expecting to see anything about, and they both have something to do with the Agents of Talon. The first one we'll take a look at is the bottom center scene, where we see Widowmaker standing over the grave of her ex-husband. For those who don't follow the lore that closely, an extremely brief summary of Widow's backstory would be that Talon captured and mutated her to become the perfect assassin against her ex, a then agent of Overwatch. She carried out her task and then reported back to Talon, losing all that remained of her former persona. Or so we thought. Widowmaker is supposed to be an emotionless killer who's one of the best snipers on the planet, but maybe she isn't quite so devoid of all feelings. The panel begs the question, why would she bother to visit the grave of her first kill? And even then to leave a rose on it? That seems to me like she does have some memories of the feelings she once felt for Gerard. She could have either never lost her emotions in the first place, or she's slowly regaining them as time goes on. Just another little poke at the beast known as speculation. If Widowmaker is in fact regaining her capacity to feel over time, what does that mean for the rivalry between her and Tracer? Could this possibly end in a confrontation where Tracer uses her time warping powers to help Widow fully regain her former morality while retaining all skills as an assassin she gathered while working for Talon? If so, she could become an extremely effective ally in the fight against whatever evil plagues the world of Overwatch. We're finally at the last panel of this page in the comic, and this one raised just as many questions as the previous one for me. Here we see in the center right portion of the page, Reaper looming behind what looks like a family enjoying a Christmas night on the town. The first thing that came to my mind here was, why the hell is Reaper creeping on some unsuspecting civilians? But then I began to think about it deeper. Reaper isn't the kind of villain who'd stalk any random person, and Blizzard wouldn't bother drawing this scene unless it was something important to the character. What if the family, or at least some of its members, are related to Reaper somehow? The first thing I began looking for is any resemblance to Gabriel Reyes in the faces of the father and the son. Nothing immediately stuck out to me, so I kept searching. The timeline for Overwatch is still full of blank spaces, but one estimate is that the Swiss headquarters mishap went down around 10 years ago. Looking at the son, it could be possible that he's Reyes's. He does appear to be around that age. If this were true, it would make the mother Reaper's ex-wife, and the father figure the stepfather of the son. This seems to be supported by the look on the father's face. That cocky smile isn't something you'd see on the face of a character that was trying to be portrayed as upstanding. Could it be possible that Gabe Jr.'s stepfather is an asshole? Maybe not an abusive asshole. I don't think he'd survive long enough with Reaper looming in the shadows, but certainly your run-of-the-mill jerk. That kind of situation certainly would give Reaper a good excuse to effectively stalk this otherwise random family, especially when he could be doing so many other things with his time. Though I will admit that if Blizzard comes out and says that the family in the picture doesn't have anything to do with Reaper, I'll get a good laugh out of how random the whole thing turned out to be. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I tried to work as fast as possible to get it out reasonably close to the release of the comic, and I think I did pretty well in that regard. If you did like what I had to say, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Links for my social media and whatnot are in the description below, and as for the comment question, do you think that it's possible for Widowmaker to ever be redeemed for everything that she's done while working for Talon? Personally, I think it's possible, but not without some crazy shit going down in the process. Anyways, I hope that for those of you who celebrate it, you have a Merry Christmas. For those who don't, have a great Sunday. Well, that's all the time I've got for today, so until next time, don't die.